Laura, welcome to episode 76 of the John Covey podcast.
76, bloody hell. 76, that's 13. Well, that adds up to 4. Numerology, that's quite a good number.
Is that a good number, is it? Good. Good. Are you into numerology?
A little bit. Yes, I do like my numbers.
Good. What's yours?
What my overall number, life path number, is 9.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is if you add all of the digits together and sort of bring them down and 9. So that's a good one. That means we're highly evolved.
Well, I think it's true.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
very much so. So, Laura Billingham, so you run a content writing business.
I do. Yes.
From your wonderful home in how do you pronounce it? Fulo. Yeah. Fulo, which is in the Peak
District. It's a little village. Yeah. You've heard of Eam, the plague village. Everybody's heard of Eam.
Yeah.
We actually fall under kind of the jurisdiction of Eam, so I'm about 5 minutes away from Eam.
Got ya.
It's a nice little spot to be in. We've got a pub and a church. That's
perfect. Absolutely. Are you religious?
Yeah. No.
No, so you don't need the church as long as there's a pub.
I'm spiritual.
I love it. Good stuff. So I've got here, Laura, that you've always had a very vivid imagination.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely.
Which you didn't really get to use until quite recently.
I guess as a kid I'd always used it because I used to write poems and stories as a kid, and I'd have make-believe friends, and I've got 2 younger sisters, and we used to play all sorts of, imaginary games. And that's something you don't seem to see kids doing these days, but we would act roles out, we'd pretend to be queens and princesses and, what have you. So, I did a lot of that. I did a lot of writing short stories and poems and stuff throughout school.
Sure.
But in terms of actually utilising the skill to make a living out of, that was only a couple of years ago, probably. There'd always been elements of doing it in jobs.
Sure.
So writing briefs and submissions and what have you. And even job description, you can be quite inventive in job descriptions. So there was lots of ways that I used it, but not in the way that I do now.
No. Yeah. Why do you think we as adults stop using it? Is it school? Has it come after school? Is it education? Yeah.
It's education. It's definitely. I mean, it's funny because I've had this conversation at Destination Depot this morning with a lady from Barnsley College who was very much into drama and theatrical kind of stuff. And she had that knocked out of her at school. She was basically told, you'll never make a living out doing that. You can't do that. You have to do the science, the maths, and get a proper job, which is exactly the same as I was told.
Of course.
But she's 30 years younger than me. So it just goes to, it's not changed in 30 years. And it's not 25, let's be generous there.
You're rounding up, aren't you? You're rounding up.
I'm rounded down. So it's not changed in all that time. And I think that's really sad because there is a place for creativity in all of us.
In our lives.
And I think, I think when we lose it, that's when things start to go tits up because you become too rigid in your views and your outlooks and too dogmatic. Whereas if you've got a bit of imagination and you're using your imagination, you can see different outcomes.
Of course. I always remember, we're just going on a little bit of a segue here, but I remember playing as children, and I remember at the top of our garden, my dad had built a big shed. And so we've got every single tool you can probably imagine in this shed. So it was like a workshop in itself. And I remember we were playing Thundercats, if you remember Thundercats.
Oh, God, yeah. Legend of Grayskull, was it?
Well, that was He-Man.
He-Man, yeah.
Yeah, the other one. So they've got this big garden fork at the top of the garden. And I can't remember what I shouted, but I ended up throwing this garden fork down the garden at the enemies. And it went straight through the foot. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But you're right, though. I mean, like, we do play as children, and it's a shame that we stop playing. I think some adults still continue to play, don't they? Some they embrace it and they follow through on it. And I think that kind of had a bit of a rebirth maybe 15, 20 years ago when they started doing all this. They call it larking, don't they? Is it larking?
LARPing.
LARPing, sorry.
Live action role play. Yeah.
Yes, LARPing, sorry, yeah. And I think it's incredible. How cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed feelings about that, because my other half is or was a Viking reenactor.
Oh, no way.
But they use proper tool, proper
Sure.
swords, proper,
Yes.
I mean, obviously blunted, and the proper
course.
uniforms and stuff. And they get very dismissive of LARPers, because LARPers will use wooden or plastic or whatever.
Really?
But for the reenactments, yeah. So I have kind of like, I can see the fun in it.
Sure.
I'm not sure it's something that I'd want to do.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think it's something that I would do myself.
No.
But, well, who knows? Who knows? You never know. I
mean,
it's
different, isn't it? And it. Go on, sorry.
No. So I was just going to say, I wanted to be an actor as a child. All through my childhood, my goal was I wanted to be an actor, and I did drama GCSE.
Wow.
Did drama GCSE. I did a few auditions for TV, and then I don't know what. Well, in fact, I do know what happened. I got a job, and I dropped out of school. And then I got married and had a couple of children. But I have done 4 films. I've been in 4 films.
Have you?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So it's not glitz and glam.
What extra type things? As an extra? Or actually I mean, speaking role?
No, speaking parts as well. Some parts was, well, obviously I had a bigger role than others, but I got paid for one of the parts as well, which is always a bonus.
Bonus.
But it's hard work. There's a lot of sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was fun.
I bet it was. Yeah. I bet it was. I mean, I'm trying to get into doing radio stuff. I'm on Radio Sheffield again this Friday afternoon.
Oh, really?
And I did a session just before Christmas.
What are you discussing?
I don't know. It's like an open session on Friday. When I was on the last time, it was Roni Robinson's, he does that quick fire thing. What does he call it? Whatever it is. And you're on for about half an hour, 45 minutes, just chatting.
Just right, okay.
So, yeah, I quite enjoy doing things like that. I think
that sounds fun.
I am an introvert, but I'm an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
So I can do all... I can do all of this talking to people, and going and doing networking and really enjoy it. But then I come away and I have to go, right, quiet time now, back to me time.
Yeah, sure. They've created a new segue for it now. So there's a section that sits right in the middle, which is called an ambivert. So it means that you are
me,
both, So you can be you can be an extrovert when you're in an environment that you control or you feel comfortable or you're confident. And then when you're in that situation where you're not, you obviously, and sometimes you just don't want to be bothered. You want to be you want to be
just by myself. Yeah,
you want to be on your own. So I think it's good. So I mean, what I've got from the information is that you always had a vivid imagination, but unfortunately, you was also considered quite bright.
Yeah.
At school, and so you were persuaded to venture into academic and science subjects instead of being allowed to focus on your creativity. Yeah. How did that?
Yeah, it was very much a bit like I've been put in a box, to be honest, John.
Yeah.
And it was a box that took me a long, long time to escape from. It kind of resulted in one of the subjects that I kind of had my arm twisted right at my back and told that I had to do was additional pure and applied mathematics.
Okay.
And you know what? I flipping hated it. I absolutely hated it. It made no sense to me. Numbers make sense to me.
Sure.
But applied and pure mathematics is all it's all linked in with physics, and I wasn't doing physics. So it didn't make any sense. So I think probably the first time in my life I really rebelled with that. And although I turned up to all the lessons, I didn't do any work.
Sure.
When it got to doing the O level, which it was back then, I literally sat down, wrote my name on the piece of paper, and then put, I hate this subject. And handed it back in. So I got unclassified, But with everything else, I could have passed everything. But the only subject that I really, really excelled in was, as you would expect, was English. When I got an A, and when I went back to get my results, my English teacher actually stopped me and said I'd got the second highest grade in the whole of, I think, whichever the exam region was at that time, because they used to have exam names like YL Reb and West Lindsay, whatever. So it was the second highest recorded score in English. And it was like, you see, told you that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But then when it came to picking A-levels, because it was always assumed I'd do A-levels, I said I wanted to do needlework design, because that's the creative side,
Sure.
chemistry, and English language. Now, the needlework design and the chemistry were because I toyed with the idea of being a textile designer.
Right.
And if you're dealing with textiles and just chemical and colours, you've got chemicals. So to me, the design and the chemistry made perfect sense, and the English was because I loved it. And the school kind of said, well, you can't do that, that's just such a stupid mixture. And I thought, you then. I went off to Stannington College as well, and did business studies.
Got you.
Which was really, really easy.
So what age would you have been? What would you have been, like 16? 16. That
was 16. So yeah, 16, going from 16, you kind of your A-level choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you'd have 2 years A-level and then uni. And because I was so pissed off with the way that school just seemed to want to shut me down, I never went and did uni. And if I have any regrets, and to be honest, I don't, I have a very small tinge of regret that I didn't do university. But it was a tiny little regret.
Yeah. Because
I did end up working at Sheffield University for 6 years.
For 6 years?
7 years, maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Right. In the travel office there. So I got to travel a lot.
Yeah.
I got to live a student lifestyle with lots of student friends, but I got paid to do it. So,
that's even better. Win-win.
Best of both worlds. Yeah. Win-win. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So in terms of like the business administration then, so you went and did that at college.
Yeah.
And then it says from there, you basically spent pretty much most of your life in admin and management roles up until 2015. That's a long time to be tied down
doing
into
something you don't like.
That you don't really like.
Yeah, but it's like you said, I got settled down and I had 2 kids and we've got the mortgage to pay. And then we separated in 2001. So then I was a single mom. So I still had to, so it was a case of what would pay the bills, not necessarily what made my heart sing.
Sure.
Life's a bitch and then you die.
Why do you, I mean, this is really fascinating, because one of the things that I started to talk about this a bit more last year, and I'm going to start talking more about it this year as well, is how many people get anchored down in a job that they hate because they need the money to pay for a car and a house and a lifestyle that's not making them happy.
Yeah.
Rather than, if you could make 10, 12,000, maybe 15,000 pounds a year doing something that fills you with joy every single day, but you live in a flat above a chip shop and you're happy with that because every day brings you joy. I mean, there's some major lessons.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to be honest, that's kind of where I am now. I'm earning probably less than half of what I was earning in my last full-time employed job. I don't own a house anymore because in a subsequent remarriage and divorce, kind of the property that we'd built up together then was sold, and there wasn't enough to buy another one. And so I now live in a rented property, so no ties of property. It's relatively cheap because we've just moved, we've downsized. I'm in a part of the world that I really love, and it's beautiful and it's isolated, and I can walk out my front door and around the corner and I've got this massive vista of just open fields.
And a pub. Let's not forget the pub.
And a pub. Yeah. Although I'm half trialing dry January at the minute. See how successful that is. Probably won't be. But so yeah, from that perspective, I've really reined back, and I can now get by on very little compared to what I used to think I needed to get by on. My car's 10 years old. As I say, I don't own a house. I earn a lot less, but I choose my own hours. Effectively, within reason, can choose my own clients and the type of work that I want to do.
Of course.
And it's very freeing. It's much better than being on that treadmill and knowing that at 5 o'clock every morning you're going to be waking up thinking, shit, I've got to go to the office today. My office is just down the corridor.
And there's a lot of people what's like that. There really is a lot of people what's like that. It's sad. I think it's really sad. I think that
it is sad.
But it's a society thing that we have, that we've been trapped into trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they say, so that you
Yeah.
get a new car, they get a new car, they buy a bigger house, you buy a bigger house, and then all of a sudden you need that 50, 60 grand a year salary to pay for the car and the house.
Just to keep going, yeah.
And you've only bought it to try and impress people, probably what you don't even like.
Yeah.
It's
I
crazy.
mean, if I'm being honest, would I love a new car? Yes, I would, and I know the one I'd have.
What would you
it
have?
make me an a Lexus full? Sorry, it was a Lexus full hybrid.
All right. What, the 4x4?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need a 4x4 up here, so I've got a 4x4.
Sure.
So yeah, having a Lexus would be lovely, and I
Sure.
really enjoy driving it. Will it change my life and make me happy? No.
No.
But that's something that I've come to realise as I've got older. You don't need them; they're nice, but you don't need them.
Of course. When do you think that you kind of had that realization? Because it does. I think it does come with age, doesn't it? As we get older, we definitely wise up.
I think I'm becoming more, and I use the word inverted commas, more militant as I get older. I mean, I did the talk that I did this talk because when I stand up at Destination Depot, then they're not me pitching anymore. They're me usually venting my anger at something, and it's usually along the political sphere. And I was saying this morning that 2020 needs to be the year that the world revises the way that it does things. We've got to stop putting profit before people. It always should be people before profit.
Yeah.
So the only way that we're going to do it at a grassroots level is to stop supporting the multinationals, is to stop buying from the big supermarkets, is to stop anything that's associated with any conglomerates and sort of buying newspapers and stuff, and actually start to come back into ourselves, into communities. Of course. So yeah, that's kind of maybe that's kind of my mission for 2020.
I love it. I really do. I think that the only downside to that, because I mean I live in a little village as well, and we're the same. A couple of pubs, we've got a couple of greengrocers. I think we've got 3 butchers, all local independents. And it's lovely. But I think that the downside is the cost comparable is so far apart. And everything just, it comes down. It's like if it's a few pounds, you don't mind, but it's significantly more expensive buying off of your local independents than it is buying from your conglomerates. And I think that's the real problem that you've got, is that if you can go, you know what I mean? I mean, like even things like, I don't know, I saw something the other day and I forget what it was now, but it was something like an electric toothbrush, for example. You could get it off Amazon, delivered the same day for like £17. The local stores were like 28.
Yeah.
And that's the
tricky thing, isn't it? We want to support local business, but we can't always afford to do that.
The government needs to step in, I feel.
And they won't, because it's a Tory government, so they're not going to step in and make prices any lower.
We've gone there, haven't we? We've gone there. We've gone political.
We've gone. No, stop me. But yeah, so I think it needs to be a sea change in the way that people live and think and believe.
Sure.
And we're either going to get pushed into that because climate change is going to push us into that.
Yeah.
Or we're going to get pushed into that because the shit's going to hit the fan with the Middle East, and there's going to be war, which is going to affect the price of oil, which is going to affect everything. So yeah, I think it's funny because I see it coming through. It's like we've skipped a generation. I think the 70s were very climate aware and socially aware. Anybody born in the 80s is pretty screwed because we were selfish so-and-so's there, and it's kind of spread through to that generation, which is kind of, it's one step removed from, well, actually, I suppose, technically, they could be my kids from the 80s because I was old enough in the 80s to have kids. But we're now coming through to the younger ones, the Greta Thunberg ages of sort of 15, 16, who are very socially aware and very, very understanding of the fact if they don't make a difference and a change, then it's not going to happen.
Sure.
But there seems to be that bit in the middle that's kind of going, oh, I'm all right, Jack.
Yeah, sure. Do you think that they're concerned over the planet, or they're concerned over human extinction?
Well, that's a hard one. I think the two have got to go hand in hand, haven't they? I mean, my view on that is the planet is going to survive no matter what we do.
Absolutely, I agree.
If humanity is, yeah,
it's been here 5
wipe
billion
us
years.
out, won't matter. Yeah,
it's been here 5 billion years. It'll outlive us.
Yeah, we're a pimple on the surface.
Of course.
So or as I've seen it described as we're the fleas on the back of a dog, and if a dog shook its back hard enough, the fleas would come off. If the Earth, Gaia, decided to do the same, we'd fall off, and that'd be at the end of us. Or even better, an alien intervention. I'd love that, because I have this, and this, I'm a bit weird at times, but I have this theory that the only way that could make humanity all come together and all start to do right by each other is if there was a threat, an external threat.
Okay.
You know, like the Independence Day threat. Where,
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was 9/11, wasn't it?
But they were internal, weren't they? They were.
But I mean, that's one of the conspiracies. They were saying that at that time, America were falling apart, and they needed something to bring the country back together. And so that's one of the. But we're drifting now. We're really drifting. End of the day, the robots are going to win, aren't they? Let's face it.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, it's funny. But AI, actually, have you ever heard? This is another one of my things. Have you ever heard of the Venus Project? It's kind of
maybe.
It's by Jacques Fresno, Jacques Fresno, who's now dead. But it's a kind of a bit, if you know Star Trek, the kind of the society where it's not ruled or governed by money because everybody's basic needs are all met. Okay. So money doesn't exist per se. So it's along those lines that there is a way of living which it's called resource-based. Right, okay. So at the minute we live in kind of a monetary-based and an economic-based society. A resource-based society basically says there is enough for everyone if it's all shared out equitably. And that's I would, in my dreams, like that to be the reality, because that would then mean that people could be creative. You could spend your day drawing pictures, writing books, because there are always going to be people who don't want to do that. There are always going to be the people who want to make, who want to do, who want to invent. It just means that you could be rather than do. So what's stopping people from doing that now? Is it their own mental prison that they've created? Yeah, but it's also, if you think about it, 99% of the world's wealth is owned by 1% of people. It's only getting those 1% of people to realise that they're wrong, that there could be a change. And they're not going to give it up, are they? The Murdochs, the Trumps, the oligarchs. Yes, they should. Yeah. Why should they have billions in the bank if those billions aren't doing anything, if they're just sitting there as a number on a balance sheet and not producing or creating or making anybody happy? Yeah. But if they're not got it, somebody else will, won't they? But that's why, rather than it being held at a level with just a few people, it's distributed more equitably. I mean, I must admit, I love the concept, but I struggle with it because there's always going to be those people who want more. There's always going to be the people, the takers. A thirst for power will always be there, won't there? Yeah. So until there is, it's almost, I suppose, like an evolution, isn't there? We stop believing that money is central and things are central, and is that an evolution? Don't know. I think it's a very interesting concept. I think that, I mean, we're probably a long way away from that, aren't we? A million miles away from it, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, once Elon gets up to Mars and he starts mining them asteroids, he'll be the first trillionaire. Hey, I tell you what, John, when I was, let's say 2021, saying the words 2020 to me, I genuinely, honestly thought I'd be living on the moon or Mars by now. I really did. Yeah. Quite disappointed that I'm not, and I'm living in Fulu. But do you know the thing that's even more disturbing by that is that, and I saw this the other day on Facebook. It says 2050 is just as close as 1990 was away. And it's just like, what? How did that happen? Oh, I know. Like, my goodness. Like, 1990 to me still feels like just a few years ago. does. Yeah, it does.
It's unbelievable.
But that's sort of the 90s when my kids were born. So yeah, yeah.
So coming back to like the 2015 mark for you then, when
Yes.
you decided you've had enough, you took redundancy, you determined to follow your passion, and you decided that you're going to write a book. I mean, what was the pivotal moment? I mean, what forced you to make that decision?
It wasn't. I wasn't forced into it at all. It was kind of like just a change in circumstances, in that by that stage in 2015, because we're talking September 2015, I think, me and my partner had moved in together.
Got you.
So I wasn't the only breadwinner anymore, and both girls had left home, so I wasn't supporting them on a day-to-day basis anymore. But I'd also, the job I was doing, although I actually quite enjoyed it, I could see that it was beginning to change. There'd been a bunch of redundancies made in other departments. And a big chunk of my job at that time was dealing with the finance for the company.
Okay.
But they were establishing a separate finance office in Newcastle.
Right.
And it made no sense to me, having me sitting in Sheffield trying to do something and then passing it on to Newcastle. There was kind of, it didn't feel right. Sure. And I wasn't sure what would be left of my job if the finance stuff was taken away. Now, to be fair, I didn't like the finance side. It was the side I liked the least, but it was quite a chunk of the work. Oh. So I thought I can either just carry on with this well-paid job for a nice company with some nice perks, but it's not making me happy. And the other thing was the commute. I'd gone from sort of being in Sheffield to commuting to Sheffield City Centre to being out here. At the time we were in Lytton, which is another couple of miles further down the road. So I was leaving early in the morning to avoid the traffic when you got to Sheffield, and then I was trying to leave sort of earlier in the afternoon to avoid it coming back. But the other half of the headquarters for the company I was working for was in San Francisco, so I was in Sheffield and San Francisco is 8 hours behind, so I'd be wanting to leave as San Francisco was coming online. Which meant that, you know, it was either I leave and then I get home and start working again at home. It just wasn't tenable. And it was stressing me out, and I was thinking, I'm living in this place and I'm not seeing it because of, so I just spoke to the HR people and said, look, I can see this is happening with this role. I can see that at some point you're going to say this role maybe not necessary. So why don't we just bite the bullet and do it now?
Do it now, yeah.
So, yeah, and it just kind of, you know, like sometimes things align, don't they?
Yeah,
and it all worked out.
Of course.
Yeah, so that was why. It wasn't kind of a big kind of moment. Yeah, there was an element of pressing the fuck it button, but it was kind of a slow burn over a couple of months. From about the April that year, it was a bit of a slow burn. And I still, even now, miss some of the people that I work with in that office, and I still talk to them. And the day that I left, I was in bits because there was part of me saying, "What, are you stupid?" There was that kind of security thing holding on to that.
So this was one disco, was it?
One disco.
One disco, yeah. So you got to use this? You got to use the Alta Skelter then, did you, on a daily basis?
Oh yeah. Well, if I wanted to, I didn't particularly want to. It was there. Yeah. So I mean, and they've moved now actually. Yeah.
Oh, have they really?
Yeah, they've moved to the old co-op building.
Oh really?
Yeah, you know the one that's got commune downstairs.
Yes.
It's kind of like, and there's, I think, the top floor, maybe top 2 floors, they've moved in there because it's seen as being a bit cooler.
Well, that's it, isn't it? It's all creative, isn't it? That's that kind of sector now. Once upon a time, a slide was. But no, I used to have an office in Electric Works a good few years back.
Did you?
Yeah, so I used to.
When were you there then?
Ooh, let me think. I bet it's 10 years ago.
So probably before my time there.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Just as it first opened then, probably.
But just not long after it had opened, So probably, maybe, certainly between 8 and 10 years. And I'll tell you the reason I came out of there, because it was costing me more for the car park than it was for the office. Because the car...
You see,
it's underground, isn't it? And the council charge rates on the car parking spaces.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I was very lucky because of my position within the company, I got a parking space and it didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
So, and I'll tell you what, that was bloody handy of a weekend if you wanted to go shopping, because I just go parking.
Absolutely. So 2015, you decided that you were going to write a book.
Yeah.
Excuse me. You decided that you're going to write a book, and you set about going about this. I mean, like, was the book the thing that you decided that you was going to do as the main thing, or was that just something that was an addition? Did you come out to do?
No. It was the main thing, and I'll be honest with you, the book, I'd actually done quite a chunk of it. In that it was kind of all scoped out. There was a rough draft of some of the chapters already done before I even finished.
Right.
I'd been playing around with it for a couple of years.
Sure.
But in addition to finishing that book, I also did something called NaNoWriMo, which is Write a Novel in a Month, which runs every November.
Sure.
And that is, if you're ever thinking about writing a book, that is a great thing to do, because it teaches you the discipline of getting 50,000 words done in a month. It's fantastic for giving you that discipline. So I did that at the same time as writing the book, which was ultimately finished whenever it was finished. So I did the NaNoWriMo, which kind of came up with a kernel of an idea which will form the central part of a trilogy.
Okay.
At some point, when I can get my brain round book 1 and book 3. I've got the idea of how book 1 and book 3 would be. But I've got to write. There's quite a lot of research to do both of them.
Sure.
But that's what I quite like. I like the research thing, which is why the book that I did finish and was published actually just almost exactly a year ago. A Time for Grace was published. The central part of that was set in the 13th century, so that was a lot of research. I like the research. I tend to I'll get drawn down the rabbit hole if I'm not careful. And what started with it, I'll just look up that fact, became and that and and that.
I can see that. Yeah, totally.
So yeah, I'm a bit of a research freak.
Sure. Which is I suppose you need that as a writer.
Yeah. I mean, you need to have the ideas, but if you're going to write about history and historical events, you need to make sure that you've
So you set on a challenge to do 50,000 words in a month. What's that then? So that's like what, 1,500 words a day?
Yeah.
How many pages is that? I mean, how many words are on a page? About 150, 300?
No, on an A4 piece of paper, you get about between 400 and 500.
What's on a book page?
A Time for Grace is 88,000 words, and it's about that thick as a book. So it's not. Yeah, it's a lot of words. It's not a pamphlet.
No.
It's
I'm just trying to work out how many pages you'd have to write a day. I mean, like if you had 150 words per page, I don't know if that's right for a book, but you'd be looking at.
Well, yeah, it might be.
Like 5. You're probably looking at about 10, maybe 12 pages a day.
Something like that.
That's good going, isn't it?
Trying to work it. So 150 times. All right, let's play. I'm trying to do it on my phone. Do it that way. 50, 1, 2, 3 divided by 150. Yeah, it's 333 pages if you use your 150 word. Yeah. Right. So yeah, but it's funny. I mean, I've always been able to work by myself and not, on my own. But doing that actually was a really good grounding for the discipline that you need if you're going to complete a novel. Because A Time for Grace had been sitting around in various forms of manuscript since back end of 2013, and I kept picking it up and putting it back down again. Yeah. Doing the NaNoWriMo made me go, do you know what? You can do this. So I did, and I finished off A Time for Grace. And then that sounds a bit daft, but when you've always had this aspiration to complete a novel, somehow completing it feels like, even if it never got read, I'd finished, I'd done a novel.
Sure.
So I didn't really do much about it. And then by the middle of 2016, I needed to get some money, and so I started doing other things.
Got you.
And it was a chance meeting with somebody a bit further down the line that ended up with it being published.
It rebirthed it all. So did you self-publish then? Was it self-published or?
I looked at self-publishing, but in the way that serendipity sometimes sort of takes a hand in things, I happened to meet a lady, because the first business I set up when I went and set my own business, it was doing outsourced business admin, because that's what I knew.
Sure.
And I met her at an event, and we were talking, and she'd gone from doing just normal VA stuff to she was getting more and more asked to proofread and to, you know, sort of to do layouts and things for people who were self-publishing.
Sure.
And she thought to herself, well, there's obviously a need for this. So she actually set herself up as a micro publisher based in Derby.
Oh, right, okay.
And we met at an event and we were talking. I genuinely at that time didn't link what she was doing with the fact that I'd done the book.
Right, yeah.
It just we were talking, you know, sometimes it didn't connect. And it was about a week later and I thought, silly cow, why didn't you mention that you'd written something? So I rang her up and she said, well, send it me. She said, no, I'll have a look for nothing. She said, but I will tell you straight if I think it's crap.
Yeah.
Fine.
Right.
So I sent it to her. And then I didn't hear anything for about 10 days. And then I got an email, fucking hell, I'll take this on. Okay.
Let's do it.
So normally, you see, the way that her kind of normal system was, people paid her to do the proofreading, the editing, the laying out, and they're getting it online and published kind of thing. So they paid to do it. So I got mine done for free. She took it on as a full service publishing thing because she reckoned she'd get her money back doing it. Right. And whether she has or not, I don't know. Because I think I'm one of those people, when I've finished something, I can just put it behind me and move on. Sure. So finished, done, move on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, it's got 10+ reviews on Amazon, 4 and 5 star, and lots of nice things about it. So yeah, that's kind of like, it's a nice little warm feeling inside.
Absolutely,
people have read it and they enjoy it. But
what was the biggest challenge for you writing the book?
Finishing it.
Finishing the book.
The temptation as a writer and a creative is to keep tweaking.
Yeah.
And I think in these days of self-publishing, it's very easy for people to keep thinking, it's not done yet. Right. I'll just change that. Yeah. That's not right. Yeah. Whereas in the traditional days, when you'd have a manuscript and you'd hand it in, and your editor might say, you need to change this. Yeah. Nowadays, you keep it with you all the time. So the temptation is to think, I don't like that bit, I'll change. So you'll read something and go, oh, I'll change that. Yeah. So that was it. That deciding when it was done, I suppose, was the biggest thing.
What's the best advice you'd give to somebody who's thinking about writing?
Just do it. Don't think about it. Really don't think about it. I still do it now when I'm writing now. I quite often have a kernel of an idea, and I just sit at the keyboard. And whatever comes out, and it's kind of, maybe your first 3 pages will be utter shite, or your first 3 paragraphs will be shite, but you're going and you're in the flow. Sure. And you go back and you'll edit the first bit. But yeah, just do it. Don't be afraid. What's the worst that can happen? That's all I'm saying. What's the worst that can happen?
Definitely so. No, that's really good. So you said that you'd gone into setting up an outsourced admin business. Because it's what you always did, and unfortunately that didn't work out, did it?
No, well, it's kind of like, when I look back now, I think, what was I thinking about? I didn't like that stuff before. Sure. Why would I set up a business doing that? Yes, I'm good at it, but I don't like it.
What failed about it? Like, what did you learn from that?
Is it that Einstein says, if you keep repeating the same things, expect the same results? It was something like that, isn't it? So it was basically,
it's his version of insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result.
Yeah. So why did I expect that basically doing exactly the same stuff that I'd been involved in for 20 years was going to be better just because I was doing it for myself? Right. It wasn't. It still drove me bloody insane. But you got the added stress of you were having to find clients to drive you insane.
Yes. What were the hardest part about it?
I I think for me, the selling side of it, I think if you don't well, for me anyway, if you don't genuinely, I can't even say it, genuinely believe in the product and the service that you're offering for whatever reason,
100%.
it can be very difficult to go out and persuade other people
100%.
to believe in it.
The first sale's got to be to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I wasn't completely bought into the idea. It was something I was doing because I knew I could do it.
Right.
Whereas what I'm doing now, there are issues and I'm still selling, but I'm selling me. And that's very different because I'm selling me and what I can do for someone. But they're buying me first and foremost.
Right.
So if they want someone to tell it like it is, but to tell it using their tone of voice, because that's what I like to think is my skill, is that I can read people. And before I take on a writing client, I do effectively what we're doing now, and we have a long talk.
Sure.
And I get to know people's phrasings and what they're passionate about. And that's what I will then put into the work that I produce for them.
Sure, that makes total sense. Makes total sense. So in terms of the, because I think that failing in business is massively valuable. I think that this, like, you learn so much from the fail. You learn very little from winning. Like, if you just won everything that you did, you'd learn nothing from that.
Yeah.
So I
you just sail through life, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course. And I think that the failure is so vital for showing us where we need to improve. I think it's massively important.
Definitely.
So like, from that, what would be your best advice for somebody that's looking at going into business for themselves? And now that you've gone into business once through something that you knew and it didn't quite work out, but now you've gone into business again with something that you're incredibly passionate about and it's working for you, like, what advice would you give somebody coming into business?
By all means, pick something that you are good at doing, but if you don't also enjoy it, be prepared not to enjoy your business.
Right.
And if it is your own business and you're not passionate about it, it's just going to be work. If you have a passion about your business, you'll never feel like you're working. You feel like you've got a hobby.
Yeah.
And getting paid for it sometimes.
Sure. How do you manage to control it to a degree that hobby then doesn't become a burden?
Yeah, that can be an issue. And I think because I've kind of split myself, if you like. So I have the work that I do for clients, which is very fact-based and genuinely involves perhaps researching what they're doing, looking at backlinks, genuinely quite fact-based. I mean, one of the ones I've done recently has been about personality profile. I've done lots of stuff about sales, lots of stuff about the financial sector. So it's all quite dry, fact-based stuff. But then I have the release of, I'll just write a short story for myself, or I'll work on doing one of the 3 or 4 novels that I'm working on, do little bits, so that I've got the work side is very distinct from the passion side, if that makes sense.
Sure. How do you discipline yourself to be able to flip between the two?
Depends on the volume of work. If I've got paid work, that will always take priority. How
do you discipline yourself to do the priority work, though? Because as a creative, but do you know, I mean, the amount of people that I know that I know incredibly well who are very creative, and they're very good at doing the work as well, but they'll often do the creative at their own detriment to the work.
Yeah, I'm probably the other way around, and I think that's the way I was brought up, and particularly being a single mum is, I've got to get money in, so the money comes in first. But I'm also quite disciplined in that I have a Google Calendar set up, and it's blocked out. So there's a block each day, which, if I want to do it, is blocked out for writing for me. So that's the one way I do it. And I have alerts pop up on my phone, alerts pop up on the computer saying, now it's time to write. So provided I haven't got a deadline, I know that I can then go, okay, right. But I also like to do, one of my themes this year is self-development. So developing me in certain ways. So I've also got that is factored into my calendar and my diaries. So which is
massively important. Yeah, totally. So just coming back to yourself then, in your family, you got two daughters, both left home.
Yeah.
Did you encourage them to follow the passion, or did you encourage them to go down that academic subject route?
Neither of them is particularly academic.
Right.
What I said to both of them was, I don't care what you do as long as you do something.
Okay.
Now, my eldest daughter is very into drama and musical theatre and kids and teaching.
Uh-huh.
And that is exactly what she's done from a very young age. 14, maybe 15, she was teaching on a Saturday afternoon at a drama school.
Right.
And she's continued that and is now effectively taking over that particular little drama school and making it her own. But she also went on to uni and she did a degree in childhood studies, and she's now an SEN assistant at Notre Dame. So, but she's, and then in addition to that, she helps run an after school club. So she's very much almost following her passions. Not quite, but almost following her passions.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter is very, I think in temperament, she's probably more like me. She goes her own sweet way, no matter what anybody says. So she went off the rails a bit quite early on, dropped out of doing A-levels, dropped out of doing college work, and went to work in a bar.
Okay.
But ended up within 18 months being deputy manager of an enormous bar.
Right.
In Sheffield.
Sure.
You know, she moved to Leeds and she did various. So she wasn't content just to do it, she has to move up. And then she decided she couldn't stand the unsocial hours anymore, and actually went and got another job and is kind of working her way up there. So she's a bit more driven by the financial aspects than her older sister is. But they're just different people. And I've just always said, I'll always be there if you need me, but it's your life and you make your life, so I'm not going to tell you what to do.
Brilliant, fantastic. You says, like, coming on to what you were just saying just prior to that, he says you are passionate about empowering women, certainly of a certain age, to take back control of their lives and start doing work that makes them really happy as well. So that you do this through an online group called Revival Sanctuary.
Yeah, it's not just online anymore. When I joined them, December 2018, it was basically just online. So there's Facebook groups, LinkedIn, etc., etc. We now run bi-monthly meetings in several different locations in the UK. I run the Sheffield one.
Wonderful.
And that's been going since last July.
Right.
So I think we're on to the 4th meeting, because I only run them bi-monthly.
Sure.
And they're slightly different from your average networking in that there's full 3 hours initially, but I have 3 different speakers drawn from wherever I can within the actual membership group, because that has to be a benefit of being a member.
Right.
And it's each of those 3 ladies has 20 minutes to either talk about their business or talk about themselves or talk about their career development or how they could help people in the group. So we've had some great speakers. I mean, Olga Gaidani's done it. Sue Kerr's done it. I'm trying to get Elaine Mitchell. She will do it one day. So it's all kind of, it ranges from pure kind of business to how these ladies that are in this room can actually develop themselves.
Of course.
And I've seen some amazing transformations.
That's good.
One lady in particular, I'm not going to name her because it's not fair, but when I first met her and invited her along to the revival, she'd just started off in business and she had no clue what she was doing. She would say boo to a goose, and now she'll stand up in a room full of people and she will pitch her business.
Incredible.
And she'll pitch it really well.
Incredible.
And it's just lovely to see.
Yeah, it is. Majorly.
Maybe that's my next route, you see. Maybe that's my next route is more down that helping people to see themselves more clearly.
Their potential, yeah. I mean, that I think that is the number 9 numerology, and it is to be a guide.
Yeah, be a guide and a leader. Yeah, just taking me a bloody long time. Yeah.
took a while to get there.
If you could talk to my mum, I mean, she's past it and she's got Alzheimer's and she doesn't know, she's on her last legs, but she always said that I was the bossy leader. So she was probably right, bless her.
It just took you a while to get there.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Laura, it's been absolutely wonderful to speaking with you. Where can people find out more?
The easiest thing is to look me up on LinkedIn, to be honest, because that is the platform I use most of the time. So it's linkedin.com Laura Billingham. I think that's it for me.
Okay.
I managed to,
Sure.
to claim that one. Or you could try emailing me at hello@laurajbillingham.com.
Cool.
The website, which is www.landgassociates.co.uk.
Okay, fantastic. Well, what I'll do is we'll put the links in the description somewhere for everyone that's listening or watching this as well. So we'll put that on there as well. And again, Laura, it's been absolutely wonderful speaking with you. I've had an absolutely wonderful time.
Nearly an hour, crikey.
Almost an hour. We've certainly gone through some topics there. We've touched on politics slightly. We've touched on the world, the world as a whole. Like we've gone through business. We've gone through personal.
Yeah. Plenty of scope for you there to get some material out of that, John. I think.
Absolutely. Laura, thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
Cool, lovely. See you soon then, John. Take care, pet. Bye-bye. Bye.